Hi everyone, thank you for stopping by. My name is Povlsen. I have the pleasure of being head of the IT software business in Schneider Electric. And today I'm going to talk quickly about how we believe that the cloud-based software is actually going to change the game of data center management moving forward. So first of all, I'm sure you've all seen this picture by now, right? It shows the great promise of having 50 billion connected devices by 2020. It's a big number. It's a really, really big number, right? We're trying to connect a lot of devices, and this number is just enormous. But I think the funny thing is that this number, for some reason, got all the big corporations, the big companies wired all over about connecting everything they can get their hands on, right? For good reasons. So I think, actually, we might actually make it due to that. And I will say Schneider is really no different in this regard. And as I mentioned, it's a really good thing. What we're learning now, what Google learned 5, 10, 15 years ago, is that every time you dive into a new domain, in our case, data center management, you have to pretty much start from scratch to trying to figure out, when you get all that data, how do you turn that data into information? And then how do you turn that information into insights that can actually help you solve customer problems? Right? And that's a relatively big journey. We've been on it for 2 years. So I'd like to show you a bit about what we've been doing and how we've been doing it and where we are today and where we are tomorrow. So first thing to do is really to figure out what are the main customer problems that we have been dreaming of solving for a long time, haven't been able to for technology reasons, which we might be able to solve now due to having connected products, having things consolidated in the cloud, being able to drive artificial intelligence, machine learning, analytics, and so on. So here's a couple of examples, right? We have a ton of those problems that we're trying to solve now, that we're, I would say, succeeding in solving now, that has been on our mind for a long time. And one is, this is a simple representation of a life cycle in a data center, right? So if you look at the general operation, it's always interesting to know when am I actually running out of capacity. May it be power, may it be cooling, may it be storage, compute, something else. And when I'm running out, what I'm going to do about it, right? What is the best solution for me, right? So I'm a smart data center manager, but if I could even get more precise, fact-based advice, that would be nice as well. When it's time for service, right? And this is maybe the number one request we get from our customers, or at least one of the top ones, is how do we get from where we are today, where we are talking more preventive maintenance, changing things so they eventually won't break, into a state where we can do predictive or condition-based maintenance, saying your UPS, just to take one example of a device, your UPS is going to break then, and this is why it's going to break, and this is the impact of it breaking, and this is what you should be doing, right? And then we can fix things before they break, right? This is one of the top asks, which is now becoming possible to solve. And finally, another thing that is on a lot of data center managers' minds, so when they are running out of capacity, or when it's time to do a bit of optimization in the data center, should I extend my data center? Should I put things in the cloud? What is the best solution for me? Right? I'm going to come to some of the answers later on. So we've been having this offer out for about 6 months now in the US and in the UK. It was released last week here in Australia, and there's a demo outside of the current state of this offer. And we got a lot of interesting feedback from our customers, right? Some of the simple things that actually matters a lot to the customers, and I'd like to share a couple of those with you. And the first one is just a simple notion of always knowing what's happening in a data center on your mobile device, right? A lot of our customers actually come back to us and say, hey, this simple thing, right? This simple value you're bringing to us actually improves, the working quality of life, because when we have an incident or an alarm in the data center, we do not have to rely on text messages anymore, which can be delayed, as you probably know. We don't have to log into a VPN system to figure out what's going on. We have everything right there in the palm of our hands. We can see the state of the data center right now. We can see if there are alarms, incidents. We can dive down and we can figure out down to the sensor level what is actually the problem. We can chat with our team. We can see who's on duty. We can see who's on site. All these things we can do from a single device, that helps significantly in respect to being efficient around the data center. So it's peace of mind kind of thing. Interesting thing is that the second we commission or install this thing in data centers and open up for the analytics and stuff we have, we always, pretty much every single time we install this at a customer site, we immediately find a lot of hidden threats in the data center that are really low-hanging fruits for the data center manager to fix, but really, really important, right? It's things like batteries that are really too old, right? So if they were needed by the UPS, they might not work, which is a big risk. We find firmware in all the different devices that might be out of date, could impose a security risk. All these kind of things we see, at the moment you connect, because that's things that we don't need to look at over time. It's something we can see immediately. And one thing that seems absolutely obvious, right? But actually we had a couple of interesting cases with customers is that when you have an offer that is cloud connected, of course we can see if your internet connection is actually working, right? It sounds simple, but it's really important. We have a couple of customer cases, but one specifically was an entertainment venue in the United States where we noticed, so our system noticed that their internet connection was down for 2 hours during the night, and we actually took the decision to call up the data center manager, letting him know that it seems not to be coming back up again. So the data center manager was able to get on the phone with the carrier and make things work for the next day. Well, it was a big event, at the site, and this would have been a disaster if they would not have internet running or the data center running connected to the internet that day. So simple things, right? But a lot of value by being connected. So a bit about how it works, right? So what we're doing is we're collecting sensor data, right? So it's sensor data, it's temperatures, it's power, basically. That's what we're collecting, and loads from the critical infrastructure today, and soon the IT, if you're the guys you're reading, right? So again, we're vendor agnostic. I think that's important to mention. So we collect data from Schneider devices, but not only Schneider devices. We collect from pretty much everything. And this is where we're using our 15 years of experience in building monitoring software and DSIM. So we have a database of, I think, 15 to 16,000 different drivers for all types of devices from different vendors today. So it doesn't matter what type of vendor hardware you have in your data center, it all works. So today we're at a point where we're collecting almost 150 billion data points a week. So that's a lot of data, right? We put it in our data lake, we store it, we process it, we run our analytics on it, and then we push it back to the end user, right? In respect to insights, useful insights to the end user. In respect to operating model, right? Sometimes there's partners involved. I think that's important to mention that if there is a partner involved, Schneider steps back, provides all the insights, all the gold nuggets that is useful for the end user. We provide them to the partner, for the partner to be the interface to the end user. So we're happy to do that. And finally, in the, upper left corner, I would say unfortunately, right? Because we're trying to do all the cool innovation here, but we also realize that we will probably not be able to come up with all the good ideas in the world and also implement all those ideas. So we have an open API methodology, meaning that you as an end user or customer or as a partner will of course be able to access your own data and build services on top of that makes sense for you or your end user, right? So the customer always owns the data, so you can do anything you like it with, what you like with it. And of course, it's going to be in a sorted, nice way. It's represented to you with nice APIs and everything, and you can build your own stuff. It's kind of like, what Apple did with the iPhone. They did the iPhone, they made the operating system, they did the ecosystem around it, and you can build cool apps on top of that. You have everything you need right there. So we're doing the same, following the same methodology here. So maybe to summarize the offer, right? So the mobility and the monitoring, right? This is actually a very powerful monitoring platform. Everything in your smartphone, you've got everything you need. You can go from the top level, how the data center is doing. If you have several data centers, you can dive down into each data center, all the way down to the sensor level, with trail logs in respect to what you're chatting with your NOCs, with your data center manager, your facility managers, IT managers, everything, everybody who's using the app. You have everything in one place, right? Every month, as mentioned before, you're getting this report showing you all types of insights around your data center. We call it State of the Data Center report. So every month you're going to get a report summarizing the last month. How many alarms did you have? How many of them were critical? Do you have some equipment that are acting up, right? Do you have this rack PDU that keeps shutting on and off? So time to do something about it. Do you have any UPSs that are completely underutilized, meaning that they have a horrible rate of efficiency? Do you have software operating system firmwares that are significantly out of date? That could be a security risk to you. Batteries that are really old, that require your attention. General equipment that are just overaged by now and probably need a refresh and needs your attention to see what are you going to do about that, right? And the more analytics we're putting into this over time, the smarter it's going to be, right? The more recommendation is going to come behind, the observations that we do. So this is where I would normally stop the presentation, right? But as the headline said, game changer, although we believe this is a game changer, I'd like to show you some of the things that we are piloting right now. So we open the kimono a little bit and show you what's coming over the next 6 months' time. So things that we are actually piloting, we're working with it, and we're just not releasing it to the public until we nail it just right? So now what you're seeing here is all the stuff we can do with a critical infrastructure, right? This is our core competencies in Schneider Electric. This is what we do best, and this is what we master. But if you really want to solve the customer issues that are shown you in the beginning, we have to do more than that, right? We need to have a holistic view of the entire white space of your data center. So that means that in order to do that, we also need to know what's going on around the IT, right? So this is interesting. So again, Schneider Electric is per se not experts in that environment. So we have, of course, partnered with some of the guys that are the experts, And what we can do now with this offer, which is the same one as you've seen before, Structure On, is that we can, we map your IT. We know exactly what is there. We can actually tell you when you're running out of storage or compute, at which rate, right? Because we see it over time. So we can also see, how fast you're filling up your storage. When you're running out, what would be the right thing to do for you in respect to going to cloud or increasing on-prem, because we know the price of things, right? I think we see a lot in all the pilots we're running is that you might be over buying licenses big time, right? This is what we're seeing a lot. People are buying way too much licenses in respect to what they already need, because it's extremely intransparent to know, right? But this software tells you. There's a lot of money to save there. Things like, could you save a ton of money by rethinking the way you do storage in respect to thin provisioning, stuff like that? There's a lot of money to save here, right? So all these things we're adding on top, which is really, really nice. Then you have a nice overview of the critical infrastructure. You have a nice overview of the IT. But the real magic happens is when you combine the tools, right? So you don't want to have them separate. You want to put them together and drive analytics based on that. And this is where we're going. And we're there pretty soon, right? So this is where you take critical infrastructure, you take the IT, so you have the entire white space environment, you put them together, right? You pull the data up, you put them together, and then you derive analytics, you derive advice, you derive insights to the data center manager to do smart decisions based on the whole thing, right? So take the other example that we used early on around, I'm running out of capacity, right? Say it's storage, whatever. So in this case, if you know the whole picture, you can also say, okay, you're running out of storage. If you're going to extend the capacity in your data center yourself, right? You're actually out of power as well. You need more power. Cooling, you're doing okay. So you're going to need this and this and this. Or you could go to the cloud, which will cost you this. And based on the way your data center is set up today, because again, we will know the configuration, we can even guide you to which cloud provider is the most financial viable one for you to use, right? Because they have different business models, and it really depends on how you're utilizing your IT, which one is the best one for you to go to, right? It sounds like science fiction. It's not. It's things we can do. We're piloting it right now. So all these things, including things like, right-sizing your critical infrastructure to your IT, and what's going to happen moving forward when things are getting old, need a replacement, all these kind of things from end to end, we'll be able to advise you. And again, it's just advice to the customer, and the customer, of course, decides what to do. But the notion of having all these things automated in a way to help you make the best business decisions on your end, that's what we're aiming for. And this is what we will be able to do already this year. So I recently read, just to finish the whole thing, I recently read a survey or a report from some of the analysts out there, which told that 50% of all data centers today are managing their infrastructure, IT and critical infrastructure, by spreadsheets worldwide. So it's 50%. I was a bit shocked. That was a high number compared to what you can do today with these kind of things. So I was kind of seeing as it must be like using this, coming from the spreadsheets, is somewhat like going from a telegraph, right, component to having a modern smartphone. So it's a big change, but it will make everybody's lives a bit more easy. And that's what we're aiming for. That's all I had. Thank you.